Hey guys, this is New Sensei. It's been a while since I last made an archery video, and it's not that I've been out of archery. In fact, I've been doing more archery than ever, and that's actually the reason why I haven't been doing much in terms of archery videos. Filming time is the same as archery time, so when people are calling me out to practice or shoot around or do training, then that takes priority. So in what time I've had, especially during the school term when things are really crunching together, then I've been just practicing, which is a good thing to do, but that's also why you haven't seen as many archery videos as of late. That will change. I do have a couple of weeks off and I'll be going through my to-do list of 20 or so things, so hopefully I'll get through some interesting topics as well as conclude my subtitle project giveaway, and I'll be announcing those a bit later. Thank to everyone who's been contributing. There's been hundreds of submissions, and prizes will be sent out very shortly. On to this month's Q&A. The first question comes from Trent, and Trent asks, what's the most useless piece of equipment you've spent money on? Most useless thing I've spent money on would be the AccuBow. Now don't get me wrong, this is not a bad training tool. The problem I have is that it doesn't fit in my training routine. In some ways the AccuBow is a bit too good in that it overlaps with a lot of things that I would normally use my bow for. So in most cases, as of recent especially, I would probably be out on the range training. If I'm not training on the range, then I would be at home using a stretching band. So this does a lot of functions, but nothing I actually find useful for myself. So again, I'll review this shortly, but this unfortunately is the most expensive, useless thing I have. Question from Ronald, which is scientifically proven to be better, split finger or 3 under? I don't have a scientific answer, but let's say that split finger is taught in every target shooting manual. 3 under is only taught for specific circumstances, for certain trad shooting styles, or more specifically certain bare bow styles. But split finger is generally seen as the better method. My explanation is that the arrow is more in line with the arm, there's less variation up and down, and more bows in particular are tillered so that you are shooting split finger. 3 under means there's a slightly uneven tension on the limbs, so you do have to compensate if you're adjusting your knocking point or adjusting your tiller. It may be easy to aim bare bow and therefore shoot more accurately with 3 under, but mechanically the split finger method should scientifically be better. Question from Bogdan, how do I improve the consistency of the tension on my hook fingers? This one's a little complex to explain, but the basics are, if you're going with the 40%, 50% and 10% tension, then understand that you don't have to maintain this distribution throughout the entire draw. This will change. It's a dynamic load. So starting from here, it may be more focused on your index finger, but when you draw back and touch your anchor point, that will transition towards your middle finger. So you don't have to go, oh yeah, it's exactly right, hold this. It can change. For me personally, I do have a problem where I curl my finger too much around the string, my index finger that is, and on many occasions I've actually chipped my fingernail because the nock and/or string has caught onto my fingernail and chipped it. So it's not painful, just a little weird, but that reminds me that I've got too much tension on my index finger. So in my next shot, I'll put more tension on my middle finger. Try not to think about it too much, unless you actually have a problem with it, like your release is completely bungled, then it should be okay. But like I said, it's a dynamic load, so it doesn't have to be static all the way through the shot process. Question from Ben, how tight should the center serving be? If it's too tight, you'll notice that the string will begin to twist as you're doing the serving, so that should be an obvious giveaway. The serving should only be tight enough so that it doesn't slip off. Another question from Trent, what is the most essential piece of equipment, or the one I would replace immediately if broken? That would have to be the arrow rest. There aren't many things that can break on your bow. Your sides are pretty solid, the plunger button won't explode, so I'd say the thing which is most likely to malfunction, apart from locking points and all that, would be the arrow rest. So I always carry spare arrow rest. I do have a spare Shibuya Ultima, but otherwise I do carry like 5 spare Hoyt Super Rest. I have had competition moments where my rest has malfunctioned, even the plastic ones. One of my plastic Hoyt rests did have a slight rip in it, and that came off during shooting. So I had a whole end where the thing was slipped off the arrow rest, and I did the fastest arrow rest replacement I've ever done off the line. So yeah, definitely arrow rest. Question from Ashley, what is my greatest archery achievement? This would be my very first club championship, and there are many reasons why. The first reason is that I had never ever done sport in my life, like seriously. I've never been the sporty person. I was very averse to sport, so I didn't have any inclination to participate and compete. Archery was the first time I really competed in the sport and wanted to win. There was actually something in it for me. So winning the club championship, I mean, we were a small club, and back then it was even smaller than it is today. Only about maybe 7 people. So winning out of those 7 or so people and getting the club shield, it was something I'd never done before. So that was quite significant for me on a personal level. And ever since then, I've never really looked back fondly as much on this one particular win. That was the trigger point for me to keep on doing archery for years afterwards. I also beat a compound shooter. Not much of a huge thing to boast about, because I think new release 8 or something, so he wasn't shooting that well. He wasn't a competing shooter, but a recurve beating a compound is saying a lot. Compounds are very accurate, even in the hands of an inexperienced or rusty shooter. So beating a compound and winning the overall shield was pretty cool. But the third reason, more significantly, was that this was the first time they held a club championship for around like 40 years. So to be part of this revival, and now as club president leading the way and building the foundation for future club events, that was one of the first times that the club has acted as a club. It's been so long since the club's been seriously competing. So yeah, that was the biggest achievement, not just on a personal level, but also beginning at a club level. Question from Benjamin. Why aren't there any 70-inch takedown wooden recurve bows? My explanation is that a 70-inch bow is really only used for target shooting. And for target shooting, you don't use wooden takedown recurves. The target bows are designed to be longer, heavier, and more stable. If you're asking this because you want to get a 70-inch bow for your draw length, you can shoot a 62, 66-inch bow just fine. For practical purposes, most of the shorter trad bows are meant for outdoor use, and 70 inches is way too long. If looking at 70 inches, you may also look at one-piece bows. There aren't many takedown bows because, well, my guess would be that structurally they're hard to design with a longer riser and longer wooden limbs. Can it be done? Yes. But there's really no demand for it. Most of the wooden bows are, like I said, for hunting, field, or beginners. And you don't really need a 70-inch bow for any of these purposes. So if you're looking to buy a 70-inch bow, you can buy a shorter one. 70 inches is only really needed if you are shooting target with a target bow. Lastly, Eric asks, how do you get noticed for major events like the Olympic Games? This really depends on what country you're from and how your national association does things. For the most part, you need to be performing well at recognized and registered state or national events. So for example, in Australia, to make the national team, you have to have a very high national ranking. This is gained by doing officially registered Archery Australia events at state level and national level, and having a consistently high performance will not only give you high rankings on the ladder, but also give you a lot of attention from the national selectors. The national selectors, or state team selectors, will pick competitors based on their recent results, as well as tilt factors, which make them more likely to achieve high results in official competition. So getting a single high score won't be enough to give you a spot on a national team. You have to prove that you can perform consistently. Again, just because you have earned a spot previously doesn't mean you'll get it back later on. The best example of this is the Korean national team. In the most recent team selection, the Olympic gold medalist Koo Bon-chan did not make the cut for the current batch of Korean archers. Kim Woo-jin and Oh Jin-haek are back, so the previous world champions are coming back in, but the current Olympic champion did not make the cut. I heard a quote somewhere that according to the Koreans, the South Koreans, that the national team selection is harder than the Olympics itself. So just keep in mind that getting spots for a national team can be very difficult, especially if you have a very competitive elite in your national association. So yeah, basically you need to do a lot of tournaments, you need to win a lot of tournaments or do very well, shoot very high scores, rank very highly, and that might get you recognized, especially at trial events or otherwise during this really big team selection periods. So that's the March Q&A done. I do apologize for the lateness. It's been a very busy time of year for me. And I do apologize for those who have asked questions, but I haven't actually answered, either because it's too big for one video, or I simply don't know. But I look forward to your questions in the future. Feel free to ask below, or ask on my Facebook page. This is Snoo Sensei. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.